Otherwise, the radio guys are not going to be able to hear us. And why isn't that working? There we go. All right, Dry Toast, best name in YouTube land, right there. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Travis DeLuca, good to see you. I already said that, I think, though. And scrolling on down, there's my man Fapster. How are you, buddy? Good to have you here tonight. And Bombshell Bomber, nice to have you here. Thank you so much, Apollo, for that awesome super chat. Really appreciate it. The super chat is a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. Manitoba Becky, she is our wheat queen around here. Hello, how are you? And there's Block Chic. Yeah, Block Chic is here. We got about 30 seconds. Here is the lovely and talented Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. My brother Eugene, how are you, man? Sovereign Mind, good to see you. And we're going to get into some seriously cool stuff with Lesley tonight. You guys are really going to enjoy her. She is a lot of fun. And, we're going to continue it up here. Continue it up in 10 seconds. Remember, Super Chat is a great way to support this show. If you are new here, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week broadcasting to you live. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Oh, do we have a great show for you tonight, as literally one of the top regression therapists in North America when it comes to aliens and ET contact is Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. Based out of Toronto, Ontario. She is a Yankees fan, by the way, growing up in New York. So we are going to thank her for that and get rid of them damn Blue Jays and Boston Red Sox. Don't like them. Anyways, she's a minority in Toronto being a Yankees fan. Let's just face it. But either way, she does incredible work with people who claim to have had extraterrestrial and ET contact. And she works with MUFON Canada. She works close with Kathleen Martin. Many big names go to Lesley Mitchell-Clarke when they need some answers for what people are going through. And tonight we're going to learn all about those experiences. Lesley, it's been a while since we've had you on Spaced Out Radio, but my friend, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. You are one of the kindest souls in this entire field. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Dave, thank you so much. And it has been feels like an eon since I've seen you. And unfortunately, we are not at a bar having a taste, seeing each other in person with other like-minded, hobnobbing with other wizards. But I'll take it, man. It's great to see you. And I love your peeps that are listening to the show and participating. You always have people who come up with the most fascinating questions. So I'm hoping I'll get to take some questions tonight.
We will in hour number 2, that is for sure.
Yeah.
For you, my friend, growing up in New York, now living in Toronto, and getting involved in the ET field, you have had just one of those incredible lives that needs to be about a 1,400-page book. You really have. I mean, you've dabbled around Hollywood. You know very, your husband is a one of the world's top musicians, I believe, in jazz. And you have you have a lot of celebrity friends. You have a lot of people that you have talked to about this subject, not only in ufology, but around the world in different genres. I mean, for you, how did this get started?
Well, I would have to say, Dave, I have always been fascinated with the stars and space. And even as a little tiny girl, I remember my dad buying a decent telescope, and I would just spend hours, stargazing and feeling that I belonged out there and that there were people out there. And, so all of that was really something I sort of came into this life with, that understanding and attraction to the entire milieu, to the whole subject matter. And, as you say, I've had a few parallel careers. I have worked and I still do occasionally, as an actor and a singer. And I was also a publicist in the music business. And all the while, though, I was in mental health care. I first began working in mental health care when I was only about 17 or 18. And I worked as a psychiatric aide in a state mental hospital to put myself through university. So I was right in there, and fascinated with people, wanting to help people, understanding people. And at that time, it was draconian. We didn't really even have psychotropic drugs at that point. There were a few, but I mean, we still had padded rooms and straitjackets and whoa. So I eventually became a psychiatric technician, which is like a psychiatric nurse, except you can do therapy and a few more things. And I intermittently worked in those areas a lot in rehabs. I worked a lot in drug and alcohol rehabs, as a matter of fact. Now, when I guess it was maybe about 20 years ago, I felt that I had to make a big change. I felt that something was, waiting for me and I needed to do it. But I didn't know what it was. It was like, it was a kind of a midlife crisis. Maybe I should have just gone and bought a red sports car. I don't know, but
probably
it was
been easier.
It was a midlife crisis. So my husband, bless his heart, for me to find some direction, I guess, he bought me a Past Life Regression with a well-known hypnotic therapist there. And, the experience, not only was it so eye-opening from the point of view of learning more about myself, but I just knew that I could do this work. I said, this is it. This is what I have been looking for. Now, it took a while to be able to, legally do regressions, but I did go right away back to school to get my basic hypnosis certification. And within a few years, I had certifications in metaphysical hypnosis, and I was able to do regressions, past life regressions, interlife regressions. Now, how I really began to work with and concentrate on people who believe that they've had experiences with extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial beings was the fact that in the clinic where I was working, about once a month, someone would come in and want that kind of service, and nobody else wanted to do it. They all thought it was crazy. And I said, are you kidding? Of course I'll do it. So what I did is I started seeing these people, and I adapted past life regression techniques. I mean, I didn't reinvent the wheel or anything here. I adapted what I already knew to work with experiencers in a specific way. And of course, experiencers have often many complex issues, PTSD and agoraphobia, you name it. Sometimes it comes with a whole bundle of stuff. But anyway, that's what happened. And I became so fascinated with this work that eventually, just through word of mouth, I began to develop a reputation where people could feel safe to come to me. It was a safe place to come and talk and be and explore what was going on. So that's how I came to it, out of sheer love, I would have to say.
For you, the fascination with UFOs, how did that take off? Were you an experiencer yourself, or did the whole subject just kind of fascinate you to the point of saying, look, these people are real. They're having something happen to them, much like J. Allen Hynek or Dr. John Mack. Was that kind of the way it happened? How did it go?
Well, I had some of my own experiences, and I had never really discussed them before with anyone. I did discuss them in my, fairly recent book, but I'm gonna give you a Cliff's Notes. Oh, that's not what you say in Canada. Not Cliff's Notes. What are they called?
Cole's Notes.
Cole's Notes. I'm going to give you the Cole's Notes version. When I was about 16, I had finished high school ahead of time, and I had a job. I was working at a summer stock theater as an actress. And just a second, I was just looking at this note here. Okay. Anyway, so and while I was in the company there, I met a very interesting lady. Now, I believe she's probably still living, so I'm not going to use her real name, but let's call her Jenny, something like that. So this gal told me that she had another job besides being like a singer, like a country singer in Vegas. That's what she did. She said that she worked for the government and was involved directly in ET communication, because she was psychic and she worked with a bunch of other people. She would get in one of these plane wrap planes in a plane wrap airport, and, they'd schlep her out to Dreamland or whatever, wherever base this was all happening. But it was definitely out there in the desert in Nevada. And she told me further that she said, well, one of the reasons that she was working in this summer theater, that she had decided that she wanted to quit this affiliation. She no longer wanted to do this work for the government. And they were not making it easy for her to leave. She was being harassed on a lot of levels. I know this sounds amazing, but also look at this was a long time ago. We're talking 1973, probably something like that. So at any rate, we went through the summer. Now, every time that I went like into town with this gal and it was after dark, we were followed by craft. Now, whether these craft were reverse engineered military craft, whether they were, actual ET craft, I cannot tell you. What I can tell you is when they were close enough to be seen, they looked very traditional in the sense of a Betty and Barney Hill kind of flying saucer situation with lights. But they usually kept a distance and just followed us. And one afternoon, I was hanging out at the snack bar, something I was very good at. And I happened to notice that there was this ridiculous, sort of an antiquated big black town car that drove into the theater campus area and pulled up out in front of my friend's little dorm where she slept. And I thought, boy, man, that is so weird. It was like a big Chrysler Imperial. It was one of those things we just don't see them anymore.
You could sail it across the Great Lakes.
Yes, we in Spanish in LA we call them tuna boats. But anyway, that's that's what it was. And so now here's the part that gets a little. We're going to have to go down the rabbit hole, stick our toes in there as we go down the rabbit hole. But I'm going to call them beings, came out of the car. And this is in midday. And for some reason, I'm the only one out there seeing this in a whole theater company of like 300 people, right? So I'm the only one there. Very strange. So these two beings get out, and they are wearing, again, anachronistic clothing. They look like gangsters from the 40s. They have fedoras on. It was Men in Black meets Broderick Crawford. They were in there. They were really retroed. And one of the funny things about them is I noticed that they had their pants were very high, like high waters, and they were wearing shoes that almost looked like big orthopedic shoes. And now I wonder, were they weighted, the shoes? That was very strange. And the skin was very strange because they were very pale, and it didn't look like skin. It looked like plastic to me. It really did. Just didn't look like skin as you and I know it. So I watched them, and I was only about 15 feet away, so I could really see these guys, and they had to know I was seeing them. They went right into my friend's room, and after about 10 minutes, I became very concerned, and I was going to go bust in there. I mean, I don't know what I was going to do, wave my tuna sandwich at them. I mean, I was 16, no impulse control, no frontal lobe, but just as I was about to bust in there, they came out and got in their huge tuna boat, and away they went. And when I saw her later, I basically said, WTF.
No kidding.
And again, she said that she called them government operatives, and that they were still trying to convince her and offer her and threaten her, I think there was threatening. I think she actually had to disappear, because I have tried to find her over the years and have been completely unsuccessful. I cannot find this person. And so I do have concerns about what eventually happened with her. But at age 16, you can imagine my little puny brain was blown. And there was another episode too, but I'm gonna save that maybe for later if we get to that. There's something else.
Absolutely. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Lesley, for you, why the importance of doing what you do as a regression therapist dealing with ET contact?
Because I have a great feeling of empathy for people who are experiencers. They often doubt themselves. They often feel that they're ill, that there's something wrong with them. As I said early on, they often come with a package of neuroses, often insomnia, because they're afraid to go to sleep because of what happens when they go to sleep. Agoraphobia. Some of them don't want to leave the house, and that's gotten even worse with COVID. A lot of my clients and peeps, I can't get them out of the house. But at any rate, I have great empathy for what these people have experienced, and I also believe that disclosure, as we think of it as a concept, is not ever going to come through the world's governments, because I believe that the evolved ETs see so much corruption and derision there that they have decided to do this, to create disclosure almost, one person at a time. It's a grassroots movement. And the people that I work with are not only maybe recovering from experiences, but they're also in real time communicating with beings. And so I am hearing incredibly fascinating stories, but at the same time, through the process of regression, the therapeutic process of regression, we're able to relieve fears and stresses and trauma, so that these dear people who are so important to us now can have fulfilling lives in the linear time, third density Earth in which we are supposed to work here. So it's very fulfilling to help people in that way, to see them release trauma and take their lives back. And then also, one other thing I will say, and this has a little bit to do with the Secret Space program, which I believe is a reality, and I am now seeing more and more and more 20 and back guys, like my friend Randy Kramer, and these brave people are starting to wake up, and they are veterans. They are veterans. They have served whatever our world organization is that is involved with this kind of activity. They are veterans that have been damaged and have wounds, emotional wounds, and they are being ignored. So, I have I'm waving some kind of flag. I don't know what. I have a big feeling about veterans and servicemen and people who were brave and made the ultimate sacrifice. Well, we have a whole level of people who were brave and sacrificed their life in various ways, and they are not being acknowledged. And I'm here in part to do that, to talk about them.
Whether you're dealing with super soldiers or you are dealing with ET contactees, is the trauma different in each of them, or is there levels that are the same?
Well, I would say that people have, this whole Black Ops secret space program is extremely complex. So there are many different programs that people can be in, and they're quite diverse. For instance, Randy Kramer's thing was very military, and he was involved in a lot of combat and wounds and all this kind of thing, according to what he has expressed about his time. And yet, I think that Jason Rice has not had experiences of that kind of combat nature. Neither has Andrew Basciago. So I think people have different types of experiences, maybe depending on their abilities.
Why do you believe them? And the reason why I ask is I think Randy Kramer is a nice guy. I really do think he's a nice guy. But, I mean, not only me, but other people have found many holes in his story. Andrew Basciago is someone who I really, really wanted to believe until he started pronouncing himself as the President of the United States in 2016, that he was in the lineage to get elected. I mean, there's so many, to me, it sounds with a lot of these people, whether it's these two or Corey Good or David Wilcock or Emery Smith or whomever, it reeks of arrogance to me, that they feel that they have to pull the wool over many people's eyes. So how do we believe that somebody has served a 20 and back? And maybe also explain what a 20 and back is.
I can explain what I have heard from several people and what what the term refers to. Well, apparently, at least in some military ET human conjoined programs, young men and women began being groomed for these programs at a very young age. And when I say young, it can begin, their experiences can begin at age 2 or 3. Now, whether, again, like Randy Kramer, I'll just use him as an example, not saying I necessarily accept this, but he believes that his DNA was tinkered with in utero. Before he was even born, he had enhancements. So, I mean, we have the technology for that. I'm not saying it happened. It's possible. But what I would have to say is the most convincing thing to me is the attachment of the emotions to the experiences. Now, remember, I get people into a very altered state. An induction for a regression is quite long. For instance, normally if I'm doing some garden variety hypnosis, if someone needs some help with losing a habit or weight loss, the induction part where I relax them and get them into the alpha state, that's about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes tops, but around 15. But for a regression process, we like to get people into the theta state, which is significantly deeper than that. And I believe that's when we can really tap into everything in our subconscious, or maybe even in the akasha. So by the time I get people into the kind of trance that is necessary for hypnotic regression, what they are telling me, I believe, is the truth as they perceive it. You know what I'm saying, Dave? I believe that they believe. I don't think that they're lying or fabricating. And that's why, these guys, I believe Randy Kramer passed 3 lie detector tests. Now, what that says is that he believes what he's saying.
Right. I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Super soldiers, ET contacts, regression and hypnotherapy. One of the best in the business. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, based out of Toronto. And she's not a Maple Leafs fan, and that's why we love her.
That's right. Yankees!
Thank you, Lesley. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, so just so you know, our YouTube audience can hear us.
Excellent.
Yeah. Some of them are kind of mean and vicious, like Vinny and Fap, but, that's okay. That's okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about Andrew Basiago's bid for the presidency. I forgot about that.
It just like I like Randy. Okay, I really, really like Randy. And when I talked with him in Toronto at ACE, and I just was listening to what he was saying, and I was just like, there's no way. There's just no way.
Well, that's what my husband thinks too. I guess, Dave, I keep a really open mind. And I think that it's once I get people into that deep a trance, it's very difficult for them to fabricate things. But which doesn't mean that I believe everything they say is true. I believe they believe it.
Right.
So I'm skeptical too, Dave. I don't automatically.
And I know that. I know that of you. But
yeah.
But I guess in my opinion, if I could just give my opinion here, does that if they are believing it, doesn't that show some sort of psychological imbalance?
Well, in the rest of their lives, you see, they're not manifesting any type of mental illness. See, you've got sane people,
right,
who are possibly having some kind of delusions,
right,
or possibly having some types of experiences that are even maybe interdimensional. So it's a conundrum. But now we do know that there haven't been enough, but there have been experiments where regressionists have worked with individuals and they've had their brains wired up, to see what's firing.
I have a lady who, I'm going to keep her name quiet, but I'm going to drop your name to her.
Okay.
Okay, because she has been told some things recently that she may be 20 and back.
Okay.
All right. So I'll just keep
fascinating.
That. I will just keep that there for now. Give me one sec. Hi, Shiny Ray.
Dave,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Les.
Oh, I was just going to say, Dave, and sometimes people come to me thinking that they have had abduction experience, and when we get in there, that's not what it is at all.
The one thing I regret about when we met in Toronto is we had talked about you regressing me, and we never got that opportunity. We'll have to wait again.
Well, we will.
Yes.
We will. And it can be done on Zoom, although, it's preferential to do a regression process in person if you possibly can.
I want to say hello to a few of our fans who've just arrived.
Yeah.
The gorgeous Shiny Ray. How are you? Good to see you. And Adrian Bellezzo, welcome back. And Mr. Cowley, welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his spaced out radio. Horns up for you, buddy. The lovely and talented Tracy Benna has returned. There she is, everyone. Give us a wave, Tracy. give us a wave. And anybody else? And I think we're up. Excalibur, thank you. And yeah, I like saying hello to the people coming in. It's fun.
Oh yeah.
It's fun.
Good peeps.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Ida Montalvo. Yeah, Ida Montalvo, love from Arizona. Hello and welcome to our chat room for the first time. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. The gorgeous Lynn Sows. How you doing? Yeah, just don't regress Dave during the show. I actually had... I would do that. I totally would do that on the show here. I totally would.
Where's my pendulum? I should have a pendulum.
Right. Right. I have been hypnotized on this show. Lesley, hold on a couple of seconds here. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight talking super soldiers, ET contactees, ET abductees. Regression therapist Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is with us. She is also a part of MUFON as well. Lesley, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. I'm so happy to be here and happy to be talking to all your wonderful peeps out there in Media Land.
Excellent. We are so glad to have you here as well. And Lesley, one of the comments that I want to make about ET contactees is, when you're a contactee or an abductee and you've had those experiences, it's easy to pick out people who have. You can just tell. They give off a certain type of energy. Do you know just by looking at someone now after all these years on whether or not they're a contactee or not?
Well, I certainly get a feeling if they're vibrating at a higher level. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. I think once you've had these experiences and once you've engaged with beings that are vibrationally oscillating a little bit higher than we are, then it's something that becomes a part of you. And I also think, this question always comes up, what are the ETs looking for? Why is this even happening? Why are certain people selected? Well, first of all, remember that we do have many, many, many different varieties of species that we engage with in a diplomatic way. In fact, our late, what a sweet man, and you got to meet him too, late Paul Hellyer. Oh boy, what a wonderful, brilliant man. I mean, he said several times, and this was years ago, that he had knowledge that the Canadian government had diplomatic relations with at least 83 species. And most of these beings have absolutely nothing to do with what you would call the abduction phenomena. And I am of the opinion that the worst, the most brutal abductions that have involved the taking of genetic material, they involved gray hybrids and grays of different types. I'm of the opinion that those are the worst events that have happened to people, and that they have come to a stop at a certain point. And I believe that this is because there was an agreement, the Truman Agreement, if you will, after the Roswell crash, which really involved 3 crashes. We brought those we brought those craft down with sonic weapons or something like that, something we had. And there were survivors, and a deal was brokered with the United States government. And essentially these beings who I believe were Zeta Reticulites, they agreed to provide us with certain technology if, in fact, they could be allowed to take a very tiny amount of people, they said, and harvest genetic material because they were having trouble reproducing. And so, in fact, that is if your listeners are interested in that particular time period, there is a wonderful book called The Day After Roswell by Captain Philip Corso, and he was the officer who actually founded what they called the Department of Foreign Technology.
Right, but
it was foreign, all right.
in the original Greada Treaty that Eisenhower signed, allegedly, those people who were supposed to be taken were those who were supposed to be destitute, of mental health, homeless, hobos that were going across the country looking for work, many different things along those lines. And yet it wasn't supposed to be people out of their bedrooms. It wasn't supposed to be people.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It wasn't supposed to be children. At least this is what we're supposed to believe. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, I think it was just a big violation of what was going on, and I think that those particular Greys were not to be trusted, and I also think that they were looking for good genetic specimens. I don't think they ever had any intention of grabbing people exclusively who were on the fringes of society in some way, because they follow genetic lines too. These kinds of abductions that we're talking about seem to follow familial lines, particularly mother to daughter, and so forth and so on. So, in my opinion, they're looking for psychic ability. They're looking for people that they can maybe even communicate with. I mean, Dave, imagine you were, an anthropologist down there, in the Congo studying chimpanzees, and two of the chimpanzees out of the whole group were able to articulate words. Wouldn't you want to engage with them more heavily? I think they simply are looking for those of us, I'm not including myself, but those of us as humanoids who have the abilities that they need and that they wanted in their genetic mix.
I get that. I mean, why would you take someone that's already broken down in their DNA, whether it's through drugs or alcohol,
exactly,
when you could have a healthy species?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think they had any restrictions. I think we would like to think that there were restrictions put in place, but they took children. They were really. It's been estimated that about 14 million people have had that kind of experience, like a Betty and Barney Hill type of experience, where they were taken and examined and perhaps caused some sort of pain and trauma. And that, that's New York City. That's a huge amount of people. And so that's kind of what the numbers are reflecting by the reports that come in to the various organizations. It's far more massive than we ever thought. But I think the good news is that those treaties, whether it was Truman and extended to Eisenhower, however it went down, it's over, because we really don't find this happening after, say the mid-'80s, something like that. I'm not sure exactly when it was over, and so most of the time, and I really want to stress this in case there are people feeling fearful or anxious about these presences, most of the time, upwards of 90%, the people that I work with the exclusion of the super soldiers, the people that I work with, the experiencers I work with, are having very, very positive, illuminating experiences.
Right. And I can understand that and I can appreciate that. But what about family lineage? Because there are families out there who say this has been happening. It happened to my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother. So wouldn't that go against everything that the Greada Treaty was allegedly brought forward?
Yeah, I think they just thought that we were so stupid that they would just get away with it. And who's going to stop them once they were into it? That, and they can open portals, and they can move us through, they can alter our vibrations so that they can move us through walls that are seemingly hard physical objects. I mean, the only way to probably, but I do know also that this time period resulted in collaborations, also military and scientific collaborations between the Zeta Reticulites and what we would now have to call, the Black Ops.
Right. Where is all this happening? Because if we look at today's ufology, Lesley, we hear that the government, and trust me, I know this. I know it's going to sound like an ignorant question. We know the government is lying about UFOs.
Yes.
We know that. Anybody who thinks that this is the first they're hearing of this since the 2004 Nimitz incident really needs a good shaking. Okay? But for the rest of us, I mean, there are some nasty programs out there, whether it's MK Ultra, whether it's My Labs, even the secret space program, and the 20 and backs. So where do we draw the line? Where are they hiding all of this stuff? Because, the one thing that if they're doing this to all these people need to be involved with that. Not just 10 or 50 people. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, over the decades. So why are we not hearing more people talk about this?
Well, I think, Dave, that we are now hearing more, and we will hear more. And one of the reasons for this is that the military Black Ops type of memory blocks that they would use when they sent someone back, and I'll have to probably explain what I'm talking about here, but they only last for 20 years because they thought there would be no need to make them longer. And that is one of the reasons why so many of these dear people, these veterans, that's why they're waking up. And they're starting to have flashbacks, and certain fragmented memories are coming back, and that's because the memory suppression just doesn't last more. The kind that we have used in our military programs, and some of these awful programs, MK Ultra and all the rest of it, they don't last for more than 20 years. And it's my belief, Dave, and I know I've told you this before, I don't believe that any memories can be suppressed forever. Right. I do not. I think that they don't. The ETs that have done these kinds of things, they don't, and certainly the humans have done these kinds of things, don't know everything about how the human mind works. We are incredibly curious, and when we can't remember something, we will go after it until we do. That's human nature, and I don't think they fully understand that.
So with these 20 in backs and the people who are involved with all of this, I want to ask you, what is the commonality between them with their experiences?
Well, they all seem to have gone through this kind of cadet phase, which I was starting to talk about a little bit earlier, where the missing time starts happening. They're even taken out of the classroom at school. So this training starts beginning in real earnest, at like age 12 for whatever it is they're going to do. And now again, the training is diverse. Sometimes it's very physical, and sometimes they have, they will take these kids and have them learning how to really, move things with their minds, in a sense. They're doing all kinds of things to stimulate the PSI abilities because apparently the kind of craft that has been reverse engineered that they use is responsive to thought. That's how it works. They put their hands you have to do it with two people apparently, so they form partners sometimes. I don't mean like sexual or I mean they have like a partner that is compatible in some brainwave sense, and then they work together in piloting the ship mentally, if you will. So you're not, when you go on these craft, what I hear is you're not going to hear about anything traditional. It does not look like the USS Enterprise. There are no stations like that. It all seems to be operating on matter being informed by thought. So yeah, I've heard some amazing things, believe me. But so yes, that's the pattern. There's a cadet phase, there's training, and then at a certain point, and I have heard this. I have heard everything I've just told you is a commonality with all of those particular types of experiencers. Childhood interventions, often a mother who also has psychic ability. The father may be in the military. There's a high percentage of the individuals that have been involved in 20 and back who are from military families, particularly stationed along the DEW line.
Okay, so these 20 and back super soldiers, or whatever you want to call them, where are they stationed? Do you buy the fact that they've been stationed on the moon? Do you buy the fact that they've been stationed on Mars? Or are these potential implants that have been put in their head? Because when you hear stories, whether it's Randy Kramer or others, who say that they had their arms ripped off by alien beings on Mars, and then they were transformed into a new body from a dead soldier, and this is not what they look like, and they haven't aged. Or they tell you that, I was born in 1970, but I look 40 years or 50 years old, but, this is a new body. I was really born in 1943. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is what doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I'll go ahead and talk about that medical part of it, because I've heard that's some of the most astounding stuff that I've ever heard. And the most astounding stuff I've heard didn't even come from Randy Kramer. But according to what many of these individuals have said, when they begin their tour of duty, when they do their final agreement and they're 18 or 17, they are put in a what's the big triangle? What's that big triangle called?
TR3B.
That's the TR3B is ours, and it's for transporting troops. That's what they say. So the first thing that happens is they go on the TR3B and they're told, take a last look at Earth. You're not going to be back for a while. And the first destination where they receive a lot of their training is on the lunar base 1, the moon. And I absolutely believe that this is feasible and possible. And Mars then is a little more complex, because according to some of these individuals, there are indigenous populations of some pretty nasty reptilian reptoid type beings that are native to Mars, that live underground. So, I've heard these things, but this idea of the moon base, it's just in there in everybody's head as part of the experience, the first place they arrive, like going to boot camp almost. And they have, and one thing that is kind of funny is many of them have told me, you would think that something on the moon would be extremely sophisticated and slick looking, but everything looks kind of like rusty and like it's from the 50s. So I think a lot of this stuff was built during the Cold War, during the post, during the Eisenhower period and the Truman period. Now, and the medical thing, do you want me to? Now,
let's continue. We got 5 minutes, so let's continue with this.
Well, one thing that they have also all said is that there is incredible medical capability of healing and repairing traumatic injury, and that everybody, all of these enlisted persons, when they arrive on the, when they go off to their tour of duty, they have I believe, 3 cloned bodies that are, of course, lifeless, but they take the cloned bodies with them and can use them to harvest body parts, or after 20 years, when they're going to send back these individuals back to age 17, they can transfer their consciousness into one of these inanimate cloned bodies.
But wouldn't their parents not recognize them if all of a sudden they came back with a new face or new hair or buck teeth or 6 toes on one foot?
No, they're exactly the same. That's why they have a clone that stays at the, they have a clone body that is identical and stays at age 17 and 18. It's designed that way. But when they get returned to their families, these people have terrible emotional problems, and many of them go off the deep end with drugs or what have you, and because they're 17 and they feel like they're 37, and they don't know why. They don't know why.
So what happens here, to clarify for our audience? These young men and women, they get shipped out at 17 years old because they are told that they are special, they are unique, and so on and so forth. Am I correct so far?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So then they go to Mars or the Moon or Venus or wherever on these TR-3B craft that can travel interstellarly, and from there they spend 20 years doing what?
Well, it's defensive, apparently, and many of them say that at this point we pretty much can control who comes into our solar system. So certainly somebody like Randy Kramer, he was involved in like battles, like all the time. But I can't say that for everyone. They could have been administrative, they could have been medical, they could have been involved in psychic communication. They could be what is the psionic specialist. So there's all different things, and apparently they sort these people out really early on and discover their strengths or what they're going to do, and that's how it's done. Very military, just like people come in when they join the military and they take an aptitude test or a cooter preference test or whatever, and then they tell them what they're going to do.
Okay, so they spend 20 years and then they get their memories blanked.
Yes,
kind of like the Men in Black with the white flash.
Yeah, kind of like that. And they all know this is going to happen. They understand what's going to happen, and those are commonalities that I hear. The differences seem to be in what people are doing specifically within the structure of this, and some of them are involved in dealings with other ETs. Like I mean, beneficial ones, trade, you name it. Everything is going on.
It's just so hard to swallow, that it is actually happening. And you know what? I know that it's nothing new that you haven't heard or whatever. But
yes.
I mean, it's just difficult to sit there and think that this is truly happening, and not just the vivid imagination of a child mind that hasn't grown up, fully to understand and comprehend. Like, I hate being critical of it because I love the subject, but I mean, to think, I don't know.
Well, Dave, like we were saying on the break, I'm skeptical too, and I go through the process. I make sure, because I know when somebody's in a deep trance. We know what to look for with regards to respiration and a lot of this other stuff. So when people are talking to me, and sometimes it's deeply emotional, they're remembering traumas, but also I want to assure your audience that recovering memories, whether it's past life regression or any other kind of regression, you do not have to relive any trauma, because the hypnotherapist that's following good, healthy practice, the moment you become anxious or worried, that will pull you out and make you an observer.
All right.
And you can still process the trauma, but you don't relive it. We don't do that.
All right. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is here. Hypnotherapist, regression therapist based out of Toronto, Ontario. Works with MUFON Canada. And when we come back, we're going to get into more 20 and back, more ET contact, more UFOs, more aliens, more. Because that's what we do around here on Spaced Out Radio. Hour 2 with Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is next. All right, we're clear.
Okie doke.
Okay, quick question here from Lynn. Family gets a 17-year-old back after 20 years. Are those people, those 20 and backs, flown back in time?
Yes, we've been able to manipulate time in that way for quite a while, since the Montauk chair. So yes, it is a time dilation. That's what it is. Yes, they actually are moved through some type of vortices, some type of time dilation. Yep.
Look at Lady Blah Blah dropping a bomb on me. Dave is a 17-year-old in a 47-year-old body. If my 17-year-old self saw my 47-year-old body, he'd kick my ass. He would kick my ass. I'll tell you that right now. So how long were you in Vancouver for?
I was just there for about a week, man. It was, it was expensive. You know, they have, with COVID, because everybody was so broke, what they've done in Vancouver now is the hotel prices are tripled and the rental car prices are tripled.
Really?
So much for the milk of human kindness, right? It's like the shiv of materialism going on there. You know, I used to love Vancouver, but I don't feel the same way about it anymore.
I hate Vancouver. I cannot stand Vancouver. You know, outside of Granville Street,
Yeah.
You know, people always say how beautiful Vancouver is. It's because you haven't talked to the people. They are arrogant. They are pompous. They think their shit doesn't stink. So arrogant city. It really is, and I hate to talk ill of Vancouver, but it really, I don't enjoy it. You know, I really don't.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it anymore. Though I enjoy the White Spot as much as I can, and I do enjoy Granville Island, but really that's about it for me.
Yeah, I like
the Salmon House. Sorry.
There's a lot of good stuff Vancouver has a lot of good stuff, but I mean, if you're in that downtown core, it's just arrogant. Oh,
it's horrible. Mm-hmm. It's horrible.
Oh yeah, you got a bunch of people, a bunch of men running around in skinny jeans who've never changed a tire before because they've always had daddy's BCAA card. Mm-hmm. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a combination of entitlement and desperation.
Hugely. And with Vancouver, I mean, it's literally a credit card city where, you know, you get a bunch of kids running around on daddy's credit card, you know, who think their shit doesn't stink. I don't have much nice to say. I mean, there's
they didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say we got into a huge scene with the hotel because they wanted us to pay for our whole stay up front, and they wanted it with a credit card, not cash. We could have done it in cash, but they wouldn't accept it. So they force you to use credit cards. Like, there's no other way to deal with a hotel than with and not even a prepaid one like a travel card where you load it up. That's no good either. You have to go for the high interest thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've got about 2 minutes, hon.
Okie dokie.
You know, I used to love Vancouver. I used to, like, when I worked at the radio station in Vancouver, I would be into downtown core every night. And that's where it really changed me. It really did. And I'm glad I grew up and got out of that scene. You know, I really do. I mean, just not cool. Just not cool. You know, I've been to other big cities. They don't treat people that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's not very friendly. Certainly, I didn't find it very friendly the last time.
I found, you know, as much as I bash Toronto, I found Toronto to be 10 times nicer.
I think so. I think so. I do.
Than Vancouver. You know.
Well, we have a lot more diversity. I mean, it's a real city. It's a real city, and a lot of diversity and a lot to do. And I think it's and I find it to be very friendly. I do myself. Yeah. I really do. Yeah.
But anyhow, I'm not slamming everybody who goes there. I have a lot of friends in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. I do. I want to give a quick shout out to Christopher, to Apollo, to Black Dragon ×2, VPXM, and to Science Bob for the amazing super chats tonight. It is a great way to support this show and what we do on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. If you're brand new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, because we want to make sure that you know that we are here 7 days a week at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. I'm here Monday through Friday. Lynn Wallington is here on the weekends, and she does an incredible job with her show, Spaced Out Weekends, as well. So you know what? Stick with us, and you know what? We bring the woo every night. That's our job, and we do it well. Hi, Evan Chully. How are you, buddy? Good to see you. Thank you for coming back. And anybody else who I've missed, glad you were here. And we're going to get going here in 5 seconds. So get your horns up, get ready, because here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Garbology. Garbology is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. She is a regression and hypnotherapist based out of Toronto, Ontario, and she works with ET contactees, abductees, and people who make claims that they are part of a military 20 and back group. Is it even possible? We're talking about it right now. Lesley, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Dave. All righty. Yeah, boy, we're really getting into it, eh?
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things I did want to, we're talking about the diversity of the programs that people can go into as part of this big mega operation that also works with the ET. It's a collaborative. There are ETs involved, a lot of them. So, one of the most awful things that I have heard is one of my clients who would be a 20 and back experiencer. He described to me a horrible process that involved, some type of technology of some sort. And the purpose of the process was actually to cause so much trauma or pain that it fractured his personality. And what they were looking for, what they were trying to accomplish with that heinous kind of thing, is they were trying to sort of have an aspect of this gentleman that they could manipulate, that would be able to travel through astral projection and spy on people or cause heart attacks or whatever. So this poor gentleman has a very I'm not going to call it schizophrenia, but he certainly had two very distinct identities in one body, and he even called the other one, Alan 653. I think he had a name and number for him, but his personality was fractured, and he was a very good astral projector. That was one of the things, that was one of his skills, and they wanted him, and he even did that. He allowed that aspect of himself. He sent it through some kind of psionic process, sent it to predestined locations to do some pretty nasty things. So I find that just very disturbing on so many levels.
Okay, so the fact that they're playing with minds and they're playing with basically human genetics, where do the aliens come in on this?
Well, this is an interesting question, and again, I would have to say we must be doing things that will also benefit them somehow, and we do have treaties apparently with a number of groups. Now also, especially when I get into the early memories of when people are first being taken when they're children, some of the beings that are involved with the children are very disturbing. There are a group of beings that I've had more than one person call the brown doctors, and I believe that they are some type of a reptilian with whom we have agreements, and they seem to be genetic specialists. There are also insectoids that are genetic specialists, apparently. So we're learning from them. It's got to be so complex. I can't even begin to fathom how all of these different relationships would work. But I would imagine that, like, even when we congregate with members of our own world, if we do a collaborative thing, there has to be an advantage for everybody. That just seems logical to me.
So are the aliens manipulating us or the governments in order to try and build a stronger human being?
I don't think so, Dave. I don't think so. I don't think that's the goal at all. I think that type of genetic research was particular to the Greys, and it's not happening. But I do think that there has in the past been that school of thought that they were trying to make super soldiers. All the evidence is there. I mean, we know about that. We even know what was going on up in Montreal, where they were using LSD and hypnosis and God knows what else to fracture these poor kids. And so they could be manipulated. And what they found out is that whole line of research was a disaster. It just did not work. They could not control it. It just didn't work, and they damaged a lot of people, I believe.
And I can understand that and appreciate what you're saying in regards to that. The extraterrestrials and the people that you have had contact with, and I want to kind of shift gears here.
Okay.
We have heard of so many different species, from humanoids to reptilians to mantids to all sorts of different gray type beings. You know, what is the strangest extraterrestrial that someone has explained to you that they've encountered under regression?
Wow. Well, some of them have encountered, like even like aquatic beings, or beings that are so far out you wouldn't necessarily think that communication would be possible. But a lot of the time, the majority of the time, people are engaging with ETs that are quite humanoid. That and they consider us like their cousins. That there is a genetic relationship. So I think that there are probably a lot of ET species, especially maybe from the Lyran system, the Pleiadians and those. I think that those beings are genetically related to us, and I think they can pass right on the street. I do. They may be taller. Some of them are very, very blonde, but most of the beings seem to be quite humanoid. And also, Dave, I think that there are a number of beings that project themselves holographically that aren't even necessarily here physically. I think that many species do that because space travel is such a, it's not necessary, because the speed of thought, if you can deliver a hologram at the speed of thought, then why wouldn't you? So there's that aspect too. We do have ETs coming in and out that are not actually physically, they appear physical, but it's a kind of a holographic representation.
Okay, so with the experimentation that these aliens are doing on people, what the hell is with anal probing? What are we getting out of there? Because
I don't know. I've never had anybody who talked about it.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't. Not that.
Out of the hundreds of people, nobody's ever got Whitley'd.
Not in our work together. I have never actually heard of that particular thing occurring. Now, there's a lot of crazy stuff that has gone on. And again, I think this genetic thing I think we're past that. I think we're now working with ETs to heal the earth and to raise our vibration. I don't think that those negative things that you're describing, that we've talked about, are really occurring at this time. I don't think there is that kind of genetic research going on. And many of the people that are engaging with contactees, and I mean not even people in the secret space program. I mean just your contactees who have been also taken because they're special, but they've been taken by benevolent people that they're working with. It's a different thing.
Okay, so what about the hybridization program then?
I think there are hybridization programs. I think a lot of the species have them. And in fact, I will tell you that I have heard many times from experiencers that they have been shown their children, and they have the children have come out and they look maybe human but not quite. And I have had like grown men like sobbing in my hypno chair because they had to release their children. It was so emotional for them. They felt an attachment.
Okay, so do you think then the anal probing has something to do with trying to secrete the sperm out of men?
Well, what I've heard about when they're trying to get genetic material from men is they usually use some type of screen memory, that maybe even takes the form of a woman that they know will be attractive. And then there's also something mechanical involved. So it turns out that, that a man is having a kind of a, projection of a fantasy, and they are taking the sperm with some type of device.
Right. But I mean, in order to do that, you would have to manipulate the prostate in order to be able to get to the
They get them to ejaculate. They get them to ejaculate once they're in once the device is being used, is what I have been told. So no, there are no anal probes. Don't worry about the prostate. They have it all figured out. And it's nothing that awful. It's just that they do have to instigate the erection and all of that by using some type of technology.
All right. So if we know the aliens are trying to hybridize ourselves and our DNA, where do you think this is coming from? There's so many theories out there, but for your own personal theory, what do you think is happening?
Well, I think a lot of the species that we engage with have been visiting Earth for millennia and have been tinkering with DNA for millennia. I think it seems like they sort of have a sense of entitlement, that it's something they're allowed to do because maybe they were involved in ground zero of the creation of Homo sapiens sapiens. So I think that we do have genetic connections with many of these species, and it's no accident. There's the 5 fingers of man, right? I mean, we have Asian people, we have diverse racial diversity, which really speaks to the idea that there have been multiple exposures to extraterrestrials over the millennia.
So do you believe then, from the people whom you've regressed, that a lot of the people are having positive type of contact?
Yes, they seem to be working together. So one thing I'll explain, it's kind of, excuse me, it's kind of interesting, but what seems to happen at around midlife, and we're just going to push aside the whole super soldier thing for a minute, just put that aside. So experiencers, usually in midlife, they stop being taken in the sense that their physical bodies are removed to go anywhere. And what seems to happen is it becomes much more like what you would call astral projection, or bilocation, you might call it. And so all anybody would see when this was going on is just someone who appeared to be in deep sleep, because the mechanical functions of the body are going. They're being run by the subconscious mind. But what seems to happen is in this etheric state, our experiencers know just where to go, and they go aboard craft and they go to other places, and they are working on projects of different sorts with various ETs in a diplomatic, constructive way.
So do you think the ETs are trying to advance us? Because here's the thing. When you see ETs take normal... Let me rephrase. On Earth here, we always tend to put people on a pedestal. Whether it's politicians, billionaires, athletes, movie stars, musicians, scientists, whomever it may be. We always want to put someone on a pedestal above us. So if we look at it with that human concept, and we see that these extraterrestrials are sending messages to everyday people. You don't see a lot of doctors coming out saying that, they've had ET contact. You don't...
Well...
They may come to you. They may file a report with MUFON, but they're not coming on a radio show like this, for the sake of their practice or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Lawyers, same way. Even, supermarket cashiers or whatever. We don't see a lot of that happening with people. So my question is, why if the aliens are here, why are they not going and taking and making more public the influential people that can actually bring this subject closer to light?
Well, I think this is all in process. And that there will be disclosure, and within our lifetime, sooner than we think. It's in process now. It's just not going to happen through the governments, because they've already screwed things up so badly in that department. They've refused help, environmental help. They've refused help because they're afraid of destroying the sensitive economy by taking away, fossil fuels and other stupid stuff that we shouldn't even be using at this time in history. So, and the messages that people are getting are, I mean, it's the same message that Betty and Barney Hill got. You have to care for your planet. And maybe, Dave, maybe there is a kind of a Gene Roddenberry-like federation of planets, benevolent, and maybe they do have a kind of a prime directive. Maybe instead of warp power, maybe their prime directive is we can't make open contact until you have nuclear power. I don't know what that policy is, but I think that they're trying very hard to be patient and to get us to do things on our own. We have to clean up our own backyard, man. We don't need any help from ETs to be hideous to each other. Are we fit to be a member of some wonderful society? Not right now, I don't think. There are maybe half the population might be, but we have some extremely severe problems of cruelty and poverty and illness and things that we could fix if we would just put our attention to those issues and come together and fix them. But we can't even get along. We can't even get along with our own people on the planet.
Okay, and I understand that, and I appreciate that. We got about 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is our guest. But if the message is the same over the past 60 years that we have had people coming out, it's about the planet, it's about protection of our species, it's about eating right, being healthier, being more spiritually advanced, all this type of woo Buddhism type of talk. All right, and I get that, but to me, if I look at the bigger picture, that seems like a real lazy person's answer. It's kind of like when you see a psychic fishing for answers where, well, what color was the sky? Was it sunny out? Yes. Well, the sky was blue then. It's kind of like fishing for answers, in my opinion.
Well, all I can tell you is what I hear, Dave.
I appreciate that.
And I know that there have been attempts, as you remember, like Valiant Thor, there have been attempts by, Pleiadians and other Lyrans who look just like us to communicate with the government and offer straight ahead help. But it's fear of financial disaster. It's greed. There is a greed element here on this earth. I don't know if we got it from the Anunnaki. There's obsession with riches and stuff, but we really have it. We are really, really materialistic people, and by our nature, and tribal. Like we love to get into packs and then fight each other. So these are things that are part of our nature, and maybe evolution, maybe awareness is about simply recognizing those things and tuning up your own vibration. I think this all starts with the individual. I think any kind of evolution, any kind of change starts with one person at a time.
And very true. If it changes one person, I mean, that's great. But, sometimes you want somebody to say something different, okay? Mm-hmm. Or the big question, why don't the extraterrestrials themselves just land on the White House lawn? It'd be so easy. It would get this whole thing over with, and then we could move on with the free energy, the clean water, the health and welfare of people, this BS crap of children developing cancer could end. It goes on and on and on the list. I'm not trying to be pessimistic or put you down, but it does bring up a lot of honest questions.
Absolutely, it does. And, it's extremely frustrating for people like yourself and myself and the rest of our colleagues in the ufology, global ufology community. It's frustrating because, we just all want it to happen. We're ready for it to happen. We're ready for real disclosure. Now, they did buzz the White House. There was a fleet of UFOs over the White House. We don't know what happened as a result of that. From what I hear, there have been so many attempts to help us, and they have all been ignored because of fear of change. And that is what we are dealing with right now, which is why disclosure is now a grassroots movement.
Yeah, but
which is why you're on the air, why you're broadcasting to God knows how many people. It's now a grassroots movement.
Hey,
because
we
the
paid for
government
each
is
and every one of
incompetent.
those listeners. We paid for them. I'm teasing. There's a rumor going around the internet that I buy followers and listeners.
What?
Oh yeah. So we paid for that.
Really?
We paid
that
for that.
That sounds like jealousy to me. Who in the world would say that?
Well,
that's a jealous person.
There are people out there, my friend. There are people out there. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got her for another hour on the show. Yeah, she's staying up late in Ontario to hang out with us. But we love her. And we're going to talk more ET contact right after this. All right, we're clear.
Okie doke.
Hi, Ed Parnell. Let's see here. Who else has arrived here? That's pretty good. Pretty good. Mm-hmm. I love my audience. They are so snarky. They're awesome. Hi, gorgeous Teresa. Where have you been hiding lately? You're welcome, Uncle Dale. One of these days, I'm going to break into Uncle Dale's computer and change his YouTube name to Uncle Dale's Power Stash. Char, if you had bacon for dinner, you are fully allowed, because bacon is universal. I will not eat breakfast biscuits. It's not breakfast time yet. Doug is upstairs sleeping, so he doesn't need to go outside. Troy SR71, how are you, buddy? The gorgeous and talented Adventures with Beth has arrived. No, not all the Chad Smiths are here yet. We are waiting for them to arrive. There's Merle, everyone. Merle from Paranormal Road Trippers and the Angry Ghost Hunter. You know what's amazing about Merle tonight? He actually made eye contact with the camera. We're proud of the young man for that. Mm-hmm. Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got Chad Smiths running around. Mondak, what time zone are you in? Because it's not breakfast time yet. Pleiadian Starseed, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Let's start the Merle run, people. Helena is Chad Smith. Mondak is Chad Smith. I will, Jenny, once the new store is up. Yes, our new website should be a couple months away. A couple weeks. No, Dave does not partake in the devil's lettuce. Oh, Lesley Mitchell-Clarke will come on anytime because she loves us.
I do.
We're already getting requests for your return.
Oh.
Azrazel, how you doing, buddy? Adventures with Beth, you brought all the Chad Smiths in with you. Merle! There you go. We got about 45 seconds, my friend. I want to say a big thank you to, let's see here, Guillermo, Christopher, Apollo, Black Dragon ×2, VPXM, and Bob for the super chats. It's a great way to support our show here on a nightly basis. So thank you so much for tuning us in. Appreciate each and every one of you. And let's make this happen in about 15 seconds. So sit back, relax, enjoy, because we're going to have a good time. Hey, Red in the Valley, how you doing? Good job, Chad Smith. Good to have you back, buddy. Even though your wrench was sexier. Here we go. Here we go, the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on talking ET abduction and what it's like to regress someone and hear their stories from the past. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is one of the best hypnotherapists, regression therapists in North America, especially pertaining to ET contactees and abductees. And Lesley, this hour, or this half hour, I really want to talk to you about what's it like putting somebody under? What are you going for?
Well, what we're going for is a deep state of relaxation. And that's really all that hypnosis is. And now there's been a lot of confusion about it, but the real deal is hypnosis is over 6,000 years old. And if you believe in antediluvian civilizations, as I do, Lemuria, Atlantis, Hyperborea, whatever, it's probably well older than that. But every major civilization on Earth that we know of in the ancient world used some version of hypnosis. And now the ancient Greeks had what they called sleep temples, and it was a whole big deal. It involved a maze. It was more. And when the patient showed up, they gave them a big opiated drink to get them into the state they wanted them to be in. But all I do is, and people like myself, all we do is relax people, and we take our time to do it. We usually use what I would call progressive relaxation. In other words, I might start at the top of the body and work my way down, or the other way. But we end up relaxing every single muscle. Now, when the body gets relaxed enough, that little, if you wish to call it a membrane or a curtain that separates one's conscious mind that we walk around with, and the bigger part of ourselves, the subconscious, that curtain disappears. And then we can access the subconscious mind, either to disrupt negative behaviors and instill new positive behaviors, or to take a journey and revisit memories of past lives or the interlife, or missing experiences from our present time life that are mysterious, or where we have missing time perhaps. So basically, by talking to people and by giving them a safe environment, that's really important. I think they have to be comfortable and feel safe. So making these people feel safe and comfortable, and all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis. I'm like a guide. I'm a guide who is a specialist in the language of the subconscious mind, I think. But that's kind of what we do. And I look for physical, when I'm bringing someone into a deep state of hypnosis, I look for many physiological signs that allow me to know that they are in the zone where they need to be to begin receiving suggestions.
Excellent, excellent. How do you go along the path? Because hypnotherapy and regression does have a lot of critics.
Oh, yeah.
In regards to it. How do you go along the path of making sure that you are not leading your client down a path so that way you're almost like implanting any sort of answer or storyboard in their head?
Right, exactly. I have to be like vanilla ice cream. I mean, I have to be so neutral. And actually, that's what I'm really thinking about a lot of the time when I'm doing these sessions. I'm concentrating so hard because I want to lead the person through the process, but I cannot color anything my way. Now, this is one of the reasons why, this is not easy to do, and this is one of the reasons why, perhaps hypnosis is not regarded as a reliable diagnostic tool, because there are many variables involved, and of course the biggest variable is the skill of the hypnotherapist and also the ability of the subject to relax and allow themselves to go into the alpha or theta state. So there are variables there, and that's also one of the reasons, David, why we I do pediatric hypnosis. I'm certified in it, but I don't work with children under the age of 8. I think that their relationship to fantasy and reality is very tenuous at that time, and I don't think and they're going to try to please you and say what you want to hear. So in my book, if they're over 8, I can work with them, but they're just too. Now, not every hypnotherapist, there's no
Lesley froze.
law about it.
There you go. You froze there for a quick second. And then you froze again.
Oh, sorry. But, we have a great... I see myself moving.
Okay, you're good. You're good now.
Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I was just going to say that there is not a lot of uniformity in the regulation of hypnotism. Now, I belong to a U.S. guild that's 50, 60 years old, the National Guild of Hypnosis, and they have, my basic training was through their auspices, so it's very thorough and straight ahead. I later did my metaphysical training with Dr. Georgina Cannon, who's one of the foremost authorities on past life regression and interlife regression, and so I was very blessed to have good training and to also have certifications from real training. But even in Quebec, hypnotists are not allowed to do regression. So, and you have to remember that, we're always fighting, we're always fighting the AMA, or not the AMA. We're always fighting the pharmaceutical companies, and we're fighting doctors and psychiatrists, because we are able to elicit incredible positive change in people's lives without any medications and quickly. So they don't really like that. And did you know, even, the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars people will spend on fertility clinics? Fertility support with hypnosis is more successful than anything. It's 60% successful, whereas all the fertility clinics can't claim that they have 50% or less success. So they're very nervous about us, and it's and in every European country, not just in Europe, in Australia and South Africa, hypnosis is taught to individuals becoming psychologists and psychiatrists as a matter of course, but we don't do that in North America. So, it's an art, it's a science, and unfortunately, it is not favorably recognized by mainstream science. Although I must say, many medical doctors refer people to me for your very mainstream issues like quitting smoking and weight loss and phobias and insomnia. So the medical doctors, I think, are starting to maybe get on board. I hope.
You just listed my entire life right there. Thank you. Joe is wondering, is it possible to be regressed and not come back?
No, it's not. But, that's why I have to make sure that I'm working with people who are not mentally ill, because if I suppose under certain circumstances, if someone was mentally ill, a psychotic break or psychotic reaction could be triggered. But the thing about hypnosis is it's totally benign. I really want to get that through. Like, the worst thing that can happen to you is you might fall asleep. It is totally benign. And as I explained, I think a little bit earlier, if you're having a regression of any sort, past life, your own life, whatever, if you're having a regression, you're starting to experience some sort of trauma, I immediately, or the practitioner immediately, if they've been taught correctly, they will turn you into an observer. So you will be able to process any kind of negativity that you see and yet not experience it emotionally or physically. And you can pull yourself right out of trance anytime that you want to. It's just like pulling yourself out of a daydream in a way, shifting your attention. So there is no such thing as being put into any kind of a trance from which you could not wake up under your own volition. I think that, does that get it?
I think that's right. All right, let's go to Mondak's question. What is interlife regression?
Well, first of all, it's really fascinating, and it was developed by the late, great Michael Newton, who was a phenomenal, both a medical doctor and psychiatrist, I believe. Interlife regression is the exploration of where we are before we incarnate into this life. In other words, what we do is, in order to get where we want to go, to explore the interlife, we have to take someone through, their most recent life, right? So we do that, and then we have them, they leave the body and spirit, and then they are in the interlife, which I suppose you could call heaven or a type of heaven, but it's where everybody goes after they leave their bodies. And Michael Newton discovered that by his research that people have certain points of commonality in the interlife. They meet with friends, they do this, they do that. They also, they can do a past life review if they want. And they also meet with we meet with our counsel to help plan our next life, or if we even want to go in for a next life. And one of the interesting things about these counsels, and when I first started to hear this, I could hardly believe it. On the counsels, that people are not only what look like learned, what's the word I'm trying to look for? That they all look like, Dumbledore from Harry Potter or something like. And there are beings like that, but there are also beings that are not strictly what we would call humanoid. Long skulls, this, that. So we are apparently in a soul group with a lot of different varieties of ETs they're still what I would call, hominids or humanoid beings. So, and then, so you go through the whole thing and why you decided, why you picked the parents that you have in this life. And believe me, sometimes people pick parents just for the DNA. They're not, they go for that and it's like they don't care about the rest, which is why some people come into some very dysfunctional families. They've come for reasons other than being in a family per se. So it's all of that. It's a fascinating exploration, but that's what it's all about. The interlife is where we are, our real home, where we are when we're not in physical form.
All right, let me get you the next question. This one comes from Nikki. What is your opinion of Dolores Cannon?
Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful woman she was, a pioneer, a gifted practitioner and a pioneer. Her books are wonderful, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in past life regression or interlife regression to read the works, of Dolores Cannon, and also my teacher, Georgina Cannon, who has a number of books out too. They're not related, but the two Cannons, a double barrel of great information on past life, interlife regression.
No kidding. And for you, when you get somebody who is breaking down over their experiences, they're lying down or sitting in a chair, and they're starting to detail some pretty positive or pretty heinous, but either way, emotionally traumatizing records of their past. What is a commonality between people that we see this happening with? Can you give us a story?
A breakdown as an experience? Well, it happens for all different reasons. I think that here's a commonality. It's not unusual for children when they are taken from an early age to form a bond with one of the ETs that's involved in and I'm not going to say abduction, I'm going to say in their experiences. And at a certain point in their development, usually this person has to separate from them. And it's been like somebody losing their mother or their father. So this can be a very deep connection. And when it's made to pull apart, I guess, for the betterment of the human, that can be extremely traumatic. Now, again, I mentioned being shown children, that you are being told, here are your children, and holding them and looking at them and then having them taken away. That's a big one. And sometimes, again, talking about children, it's not unusual for siblings to be taken, especially at first. And you get a lot of if you're the older brother or older sister in that situation, you get a lot of upset that they can't save their siblings or get them out of there. There's a lot of eldest child guilt about all that, and tears and all that kind. So that's another commonality. Let's see. But Dave, as we said, I try not to have anybody get into that kind of an emotional state in my chair. So kind of as soon as it's happening, we release it, but I turn them into an observer as I described. So it's not like people are breaking down every day. It's actually a fairly infrequent occurrence, but it does happen. And let's see if I can think of something else that well, I'm going to think on that. That's such a probing question. I've never been asked that question. So
That's okay.
I got to process it for a bit here, right?
That is quite okay. So if we look at the overall standing of what people are experiencing, we're told by the government this is bad. Their adversaries could be coming here to Earth to harm us. Yet a lot of people, whether it's the free experiencers set up by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell, and people like yourself, the statistics show otherwise in regards to contact. So why do you think there's a discrepancy between what the government is saying about potential aliens being a threat and what people who have contact are saying?
Well, the government is worried because they're not big players in this anymore. They've got their little secret space force and all that going on, but they don't have control over disclosure. And I have often thought, and this has been mentioned, I know, by a few people now, including yourself, that some type of false flag event could be used to polarize, especially the United States, even further. So I think that kind of thinking comes from the alternative right myself. And I think that sane people anywhere are not going to believe that. I don't think so. See, even the Pope has said that if there are other beings in the galaxy, they are God's creations, and it is no threat to any of us. So there are also positive messages that are being deployed, I would hope. But, like you, Dave, I don't trust the government. I'm an expatriate. I don't trust the U.S. government. I live in Canada. And my first awareness of the government was a big belief that my own government killed President Kennedy. And I believe that to this day. And then there was Watergate. So, my trust of the American government is really puny. So I have no problem believing just about anything.
Right. Well, we got 3 minutes to go before we got to go to break here at the top of the hour. Lazarus is asking, what part does meditation play in the afterlife?
I think that meditation is something that's done in the afterlife. I think that that kind of spiritual discipline will help you to tune in and evolve, no matter if you're in the third density or if you're in a light body, an etheric body. I have heard that from in the interlife explorations. And by the way, if you are interested more specifically in interlife, the book by Michael Newton, Journey of Souls, is absolutely compelling, and it talks about how he developed this particular technique, and it talks about it far more intelligently than I can. But if you're interested in this process, Journey of Souls by Michael Newton is the book for you.
Wonderful. With 90 seconds to go, where do you go with this? What is your main goal in trying to get people to understand their experiences?
Well, I think I hopefully, really began that process with the release of my first book, which was about a year and a half ago, and it was written along with an experiencer and also dear friend of mine, Wes Roberts, and the book is called Intersections: A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact. And in this book, I was fortunate, I was blessed to be able to have a number of sessions with Wes over several years, and was able to observe and hopefully contribute to his whole evolution of accepting who he was and actually taking control of his life again. And in this book, I tried my best to demystify the hypnosis process with lots of transcriptions that are from the actual sessions, and I think that's a little bit unusual in books about this type of experience. There, you get to really. It's almost like you can really participate in the sessions yourself without me revealing like how to do it. It's like don't try this at home, kids. You know,
don't try this at home. Yes.
Don't.
Of course, of course. Lesley, we got you for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio, and I'm having so much fun with you tonight. And when we come back from the break, we're going to continue the ET talk. We're going to continue the regression therapist talk, and we'll continue on with whatever we can talk about. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, John Hudson is here for the unbiased UFO report, and so much more on Spaced Out Radio, coming up right after this. All right, Lesley, I'm just going to put you on mute here for a couple of minutes. I have to take a bathroom break. I'll be right back.
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Be right back, people. All right, I am back. We got just over a minute here.
Okay.
Hey, Davey, how are you? Logan L. All right. Gorgeous Deanna's Vlogs and more. I'm here Monday through Friday. That's when I'm here. I'm always here. I don't have much else to do. Oh, Chad Smith changed his logo back. Big thank you to Mondak, Guillermo, Christopher, Apollo, Black Dragon ×2, VPXM, and Science Bob for the amazing super chats. Thank you so much for the love and support that you give this show. Thank you to all the veterans out there who are listening in, tuning on in. We love you, and thank you to all our regulars who are in the chat room nightly. We appreciate each and every one of you. And, yeah, I guess, Gary, if we got to stay up, I am off tomorrow. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Garbology. Garbology is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. She is a resident hypnotherapist and regression therapist for MUFON and MUFON Canada. She is someone who is highly respected in the UFO world, based out of Toronto, Ontario. Lesley, welcome back.
It's great to be back, Dave. I've been having a great time tonight with you.
Oh, we love you. We love you. And you know, Lesley, one of the big things that I love about the job that you do is you're able to bring out some of these incredible stories and encounters that people have had. Now, when you are regressing someone, do you ever regress them into previous lives to see if they had ET contact there as well?
That sort of can happen very naturally. So yes, I have actually been fortunate to do past life regressions with a number of the people that also come to me with their ET experiences. And what we seem to find is the ET experience is something that has gone on through every part of history that we can imagine. And yes, people have been experiencers in many lives. And also, and this is even more cool, is that people can recount lives that they've spent on other planets, and planets not so foreign from ours. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about anything, crazy, but generally speaking, the bipedal hominid body seems to be kind of a pattern. We don't seem to get too far away from that in our incarnations. But yes, people have experienced ET contact in past lives, and people have experienced past lives as what we would call ETs.
So if somebody, let's say, had ET contact in a past life, are those same ET beings the ones who are getting in touch with them today?
That is a very interesting question, and it's something that I don't know why I never thought about that, but I think that some of the ET beings are extremely long-lived. More, in comparison to ourselves. And of course, some of it has to do with how space-time works. I know that, there's been a lot of speculation about the work of Zecharia Sitchin, but he, of course, is the foremost translator of the Sumerian cylinder scrolls, which tells the story, really, of how the human race was genetically manipulated by the Anunnaki, who came here initially to find gold to repair their atmosphere, which they were destroying. So, we have we have all kinds of possibilities for influences there, and I think what we're going to find, in addition to disclosure, is I think that we are going to find more and more archaeological evidence of antediluvian civilizations that only strengthens the concept of these things that I'm talking about. So, that's so anything is possible. Anything is possible.
For a parent, probably the hardest understanding of ET contact or abduction would be to know that it's happening to your children.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think of my kids, and I wouldn't want them to experience what I have experienced. I just would not. So how do we protect our children from these acts pulled off by extraterrestrials?
Well, again, I'm going to say that the worst stuff that goes on is at the hands of our own people in these combined programs with ETs with not the best agendas. So, but I am not sure that we can prevent it, because I have heard this, because I've seen so many situations where the experiences are traveling through the family lines, especially the female line. You can have the grandmother, an experiencer, the mother, the daughter, the son, and it's almost impossible to prevent, I think. I think I think when someone is an experiencer, they have to just simply accept at a certain level that these things are going to happen, and they may travel or they may not. But they also come to understand, people I work with, that they can talk to the ETs and make agreements with them too. For instance, insomnia. This is I mentioned this earlier. This is a commonality. I don't know if I've worked with an experiencer who was not also an insomniac. I really don't. And a lot of this is just fear of falling asleep that starts when they're children. Fear of falling asleep and being vulnerable to, something that you can't control. So I was, and actually, this I can talk about. This was Wes Roberts, the gentleman that I wrote the book with. So finally, out of frustration and just not knowing what else to do, I said, "You know what, Wes? Why don't we put you into trance and see if you can talk to these beings in real time and explain to them about how human beings need sleep, because I don't think they understand. And I think if you explain it to them, that you're happy to go do stuff with them or work on projects or whatever you're doing on the weekend, but during the week, you have to have your sleep to function in the human physical body." And you know what? We did that. And whether you would call that a placebo, I don't care what you call it, it worked. He slept after that. He slept during the week, and the experiences that he had with ETs were confined to the weekend.
Hey boys, I'm working Monday through Friday. Let me
and they understood. See, these beings we're dealing with, they're not gods. They're a little bit ahead of us on the path. and they don't know everything about us, and they make mistakes. They make sometimes funny mistakes, especially when they get involved with some elaborate, screen memories when they're working with children. There are always crazy anachronistic things that just aren't right. Like they'll create an environment that's supposed to make kids feel comfortable, and they'll put, a phone from 1922 in there. It's imperfect because they can't know everything. They're beings just like us.
We have talked to people who have, over the years, been abducted, had their clothes put on backwards, or wearing someone else's T-shirt,
yeah,
or pajama bottoms, or whatever it may be. How does that happen?
Well, it happens a lot, and it happened a lot when we were dealing with the Zeta Reticulites and all the genetic material that they were harvesting. But there was another college professor. I have a lot of college professors, by the way. Good. And doctors and lawyers. So this is a phenomena that, whether these people will come out about it or not, this is a phenomena that crosses all lines of culture and socioeconomics and religious affiliation. It just cuts a swath through all of that because they're looking for psychic ability, which has nothing to do with any of those things. So anyway, so there was this lovely guy, and under regression, he recounted a story where he and his whole family, I think they had been on holiday, and they were traveling back to, I believe, the Toronto area from probably way up north or something. They were coming back in the family station wagon. I think there were either 3 or 4 kids in the back seat. You know how they used to travel, 3 or 4 kids, no seat belts, and the parents in front. So they were driving through the night, and all of a sudden, the father just turned off on this rural road. I mean, no explanation, no, it was almost as if he was in a kind of a trance. He turned onto the rural road, and that's when everyone in the car saw what they thought were Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts riding their bikes along the road. And this is like 2 a.m. So they're, again, we've got a screen memory, we've got something implanted there. Those were not Cub Scouts on bikes. So they were being led in, sort of, by these beings in disguise, if you will. And then they all saw the craft. And it was at the end of this, this dirt road, essentially. And what he described is, it would be, again, your very classic kind of Betty and Barney Hill saucer with lights, and it was right there, and it had a ramp to enter. And then these were Greys, these were Zeta Reticulites, and they started taking the kids out of the car, like just pulling them out through the car. And they took all the kids out, but the parents were non-reactive. The parents were under some type of soporific influence. I don't know, but that's and then they got on the, he told me about the part on the craft eventually, and he was an oldest child who was watching them examine his younger siblings, and he was freaking out. That's one person that did that. He didn't see his parents. They were taken somewhere else. And then, he remembers being walked back into the car, not transported, and all the kids have all the different clothes on. It's all mixed up. And in the family story, they turned around and hit the highway again, and they all gradually sort of became conscious. And they had lost hours. I mean, like a lot, like maybe more than Betty and Barney. I mean, like 5 hours maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is traumatizing for a family. That is for
yeah.
sure. I would be remiss not to ask you about the controversy of one of your colleagues in this field recently, in David Jacobs.
Oh boy.
You know, and let me fill in the audience first for those who don't know.
Please do.
Well,
yeah,
there was an audio clip of Mr. Jacobs in a regression therapy with a lady who was apparently being sexually abused during her alien abductions. And while she was under regression, he asked her to remove her panties, and not to forget to remove her panties, so that way he could keep them for DNA purposes. Now, there's a lot of a controversy about this because Jacobs just recently spoke at the Making Contact, and there's a lot of people defending him, saying, he's a man who obviously, said the wrong thing at an inappropriate time rather than waiting until she was conscious. But I mean, I'm curious your take, because that doesn't sound very professional to me.
That sounds like completely poor, inappropriate therapeutic practice. And I should say I am not a fan of David Jacobs' particular perspective, because I feel it's fear-laden. And I'm very suspicious of fear-mongering people. And I feel that he's one of those. And so I purposely am not really tuned into his thing. But, I've got to tell you that to try to take advantage of someone under hypnosis is disgusting and immoral. And if it's true, he needs to be punished within the full extent of the law.
Well, I mean, there is audio tape of it, so we do know that. I mean, I don't really know the circumstance. I don't know the man. I don't know anything about him and who he is. But I mean, it is to me sounded like a little bit of a ruse, so to speak, in regards to it. Now, I don't know his professionalism. I don't know much about his critiquing of how he does his job. I mean, the UFO field has always seemed to talk very highly of him, but I mean, a comment like that seems very, very suspicious.
It's completely inappropriate, and I have never made any kind of comment to a man or a woman in the therapy I've done in all these years, and I can't imagine why he would think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, well,
in any phase of the hypnosis.
I think in his theory of this, if we play devil's advocate for a moment, we were looking at a scenario where I guess she had been abducted and abused by the extraterrestrials, and she believed there was DNA there, and he wanted to make sure that he could send those off for study. I don't think there was anything sexual about it, but the fact that the comment was made while someone is in the vulnerable position of being regressed and totally not in control of their thoughts or whatever, I mean, that's where I find it kind of grotesque.
Well, you see, if he would do that, I would suspect him of leading the witness. And that's, I think, one of the reasons he gets so much negative stuff. Because he's got it on the brain. And I think he is subtly, possibly using suggestions to help create these memories. Now, sexual abuse can be misinterpreted by a person's memory as taking place at the hands of aliens when it actually didn't. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes sexual abuse, especially childhood sexual abuse, is so traumatic for the individual to recall as it actually happened. They put it in a fanciful setting. Of the ETs did it, where maybe 100 years ago it would have been put in a scary religious setting. Oh, it was a devil. The devil came to me, right? But but it's disguising the issue of sexual abuse, and this is something that happens, and we have to be very careful of that. And I question the whole thing you're telling me about here. It seems like terrible therapeutic process, and whether he should have even been regressing that woman is a big question mark to me.
Well, I mean, let's move on to more positive thoughts here, because we only have 3.5 minutes left with you tonight in a show that has flown on by.
Oh.
And I love you so much for coming on the show.
I love you too, Dave. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great time.
What is your advice to people who may question about whether or not to go under about their ET experiences?
Well, I am always available to chat with or correspond or text with anybody that would like to just run it by me. I mean, it's you can always reach me by email at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com. And that's all one word, Lightwork Hypnosis. So Lesley at lightworkhypnosis.com. And I will, it may take me a minute, because I always open it up and I always get back to people. It may take me a few days, but I promise that I will be in touch with you and listen to what you have to say and maybe advise you accordingly.
Well, that's great, and everything that kind of goes along with that. Do you have any conferences coming up?
Unfortunately, we were going to try and do a virtual ACE this year, but it just became too problematic. And I think we're going to come back. We're going to come back big and strong next fall, about a year from now.
Well, I look forward to it, because I was talking to Dave Palachuk this past Sunday.
Oh, Dave,
and
yeah.
I love Dave. And I said to him, well, anything that we can do at Spaced Out Radio and to help, we'd like to do that. And I hope he takes us seriously on that offer. I realize we're right across the country from where you are, but, every little bit helps. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I know he's going to take it seriously. We have to, there are some financial things to be figured out, but we can do it. And I know that we will, and we'll have another incredible conference about a year from now. And maybe even, God willing, if we're able to, maybe we'll even be able to have some isolated events that will be streamed, and you can chime in or host from there. And there's all kinds of things that can be done. And a year from now, we're going to do it all in person.
Well, that's the big thing. I want to get back to Toronto. I want to come hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'm not even sure if you know yet, but we do broadcast on Saga 960 AM in Mississauga, yes, Ontario.
That's right.
You know what? I'll put out the challenge. And like I said to Dave, after all the election is over up here, I'm going to put up the challenge to our radio station, Saga 960, to really help out and get the conference going, because I think that's important, and I think that's something that we need to do in order to make it roll. And having the media coverage obviously will help. I mean, sure, you got to go a little bit west of Pearson Airport, but it's okay. It's right there.
It is okay, man. It is okay. And the people of BC have been so supportive, and I've worked with many experiencers in BC on Zoom, so I know that there's a lot of activity out there, Dave. I know a lot's going on. It's a hot spot.
It really is. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, it is always a pleasure to speak with you, and you and I will definitely catch up here very, very shortly, because I haven't talked to you in so long outside of this show, and we got a lot of juice to go over, a lot of juice. So we're going to do that, but I want to say thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Coming up next, John Hudson is here. He's got his black Stetson on for the Unbiased UFO Report. We will also get to the SOR Newswire that Shirky Poo has provided, and the Thought of the Day, a jam-packed Hour 3 coming up next on Spaced Out Radio. Great job, Les.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks so much. I'm gonna get a little sleep now.
Yes. Are you available tomorrow for a phone call?
Let's see. What am I doing tomorrow? Yes, I just have 3 clients tomorrow, and I have a big. Where's my glasses? I have a big break, between like 2:30 my time and 6:30. So 11:30, 12:30, 1:30. So from about 11:30, I have a few hours break. At your 11:30.
At my 11:30. Okay, so why don't you send me a message on FaceTime when you're available, and then I will give you a ring because I want to fill you in on some stuff.
Oh, good. I like to be filled in. Yeah. All right, Dave. Will do, buddy. And thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Lesley. You take care. Good night.
Good night.
She is amazing, Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. There he is, the Black Stetson.
Boy, man, what a wonderful woman she was.
Isn't she?
Or is, I should say.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
Man. And, I loved her attitude and, the way she handled some of the information she had, the way she explained her positions, everything. That was super impressive.
First off, thank you to gorgeous Teresa for the amazing super chat, along with Mondak, Guillermo, Christopher, Apollo, Black Dragon, VPXM, and Science Bob. Teresa, it's so good to see you. I mean, we miss you around here. You've been with me for like almost 6 years now as a listener. And I don't like it when you go on these long vacations away from the show. I don't like it. But I'm glad you're here tonight. Thank you so much, my beautiful friend. Terrible Times, good to see you. Dr. Zed Smith, nice to have you here. Kevin says, if you want a guest who will piss off everyone, I could throw science at Sasquatch. Well, you and I would have one hell of a good debate on that. I might do that, Kevin. I might do that. Because I could I could use a very good Bigfoot debate on the air. And you may not like me afterwards, but we'll have some fun. I would love that debate. I would.
No, it'd be really good. There's so many topics that I would absolutely kill to have a good-hearted, honest, intellectual debate over. Mm-hmm. Because most of them are handled with such emotion and such, zealot religious behavior on both sides.
Right.
They're not fun to debate. Unless you do it with someone of a certain caliber.
Absolutely. Hi, Owner. I believe Owner is from Poland. I love learning where people are from. I keep kicking my ass, but I want to get a world map.
Oh, yeah.
So that way I can put little stickies on where everybody is listening from. Because, we've had listeners from all over the place. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
And you know what you'll find, Dave, is that if you ever get a chance to travel at all,
Turkey. He's from Turkey.
Ooh, even better.
Yeah.
Sorry, nothing against Poland. Turkey fascinates me. My grandmother went there when I was a kid, and I didn't get to go, and I was very jealous.
Roy boy, what's happening? Hey, by the way, Stetson John, that thumbnail you made for the show tonight, that was awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Where the hell did you find that picture of me?
I'm not allowed to say. I've been sworn to secrecy.
That was amazing. Did Gail have anything to do with that?
I once again.
Yeah, I think Gail had some. Shirky Poo, I knew you had something to do with that. She probably went into my private stash and pulled that out. Terrible.
But you got the honor of being Mork from Ork, man. Come on. Is there anything better than that,
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And the fact that you threw Chad Smith in there as well, classic Chad Smithing right there.
I was trying to what am I going to do with the Fonz? I'm like, I don't want to delete him. He's too cool. I got to leave him there. But he looks silly without a name tag. And I was like, oh, perfect.
Oh yeah. Anytime you can Chad Smith it up, you got to do it. You got to do it. We got 27 seconds.
I'll post it with my overview, guys. But you can see it on the thumbnail of YouTube.
I got to figure out what my topic for my vlog is going to be tomorrow night. Don't even know yet. All right, 5 seconds, everyone. Sit back, relax. Thumbs up, horns up. Here we go with the woo. One more time. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Will we be safe? Will we be out? I have no idea, but we want to say thank you for tuning us on in and remind you that all of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. It is time once again for our good friend Stetson John Hudson coming on in with another unbiased UFO report. And John, we're going to kick things off with one of the top researchers and writers on this subject. You got some news on Lesley Keene.
Yeah, so well, hello everyone, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's nice to see everybody. And yeah, I mean, first off, most of us love to see Lesley, produce any content at all. She always has an interesting approach, and she's a very sharp human. But the thing that was neat about this one is one that it was on space.com. And I don't know how many of you have actually ever kind of, used space.com as a resource, but they're typically, I mean, I wouldn't say like ultra conservative, but they're pretty sciencey, right? They're pretty straight laced, as far as, content's concerned. So the fact that they were doing this at all, I think was really good. But what was especially cool was the guy who was interviewing her, was this chap named Leonard Davis, and he asked some really great questions. And I'll provide a link to the article, but I would really encourage everyone to go read it themselves. But just to call it a couple things, one is they had an interesting discussion about UAP versus UFO, which I thought was kind of cool. They specifically had a nice little conversation about false information. The guy who was interviewing her, Leonard, actually specifically called out the fact that he was concerned that with the rise in activity that you would see a rise in charlatans, and so she talked a little bit about that. She gave a nice shout out to the debrief and the drive, and so but it was a good debate, and so you can tell this guy was not an ignorant interviewer, right? He had some awareness of what was going on, and then he specifically asked her about disclosure. And what was it coming, and what did it mean? And so there was a good little discussion on the different flavors of disclosure that we might see, and why some people think disclosures already happened, why some people think it never will. There's a good kind of debate about that. But the thing that I would and then there was also a nice mention about why this really needs to be an international conversation, which I think we all agree with, and hopefully we'll see more of that. But once again, I think that the main story here isn't so much the article, which was great, and I encourage everyone to read it. I mean, it was great in my opinion anyway. I hope you all like it. But to me, it was super cool that space.com, a writer who's written for National Geographic and like pretty straight-laced stuff, was not only interviewing Lesley Keene on this topic, but was having a rather adult dialogue about real issues and the real challenges. And to me, it was just very encouraging. It was just, to me, that's progress in a big way.
And I see it as being progress too. I mean, it's amazing. 3.5 years after the big report, almost 4 years now since the New York Times article, and there's just still websites and journalistic outlets that are just starting to hop on the UFO story. I mean, that's unfathomable for me. Where were you 3.5, 4 years ago?
Well, and I'll say, and this is just my personal opinion, but my personal opinion is that what this means is that at each of these places, there was at least one person who's been chomping at the bit for the last 3 years, maybe even before that, and they kept getting shut down, and they kept getting shut down. And finally, there was enough coverage out there that the editor felt safe enough and finally said, okay, you can write your UFO article, and the guy like ran all excited, like get to build a rocket ship, and so, I mean, I guarantee you that's going on in some places.
Oh, I guarantee that too, but this is where I get upset with articles like this though. Okay. And it's nothing against the writer or space.com or Lesley Keene, but they rehash all of the information that we've already known for 4 years, almost 4 years. They're not taking it to that next level. I mean, how many introductory pieces do we need to this subject? Because here's what happens. A lot of times, John, editors will say, go write your UFO piece. I'm tired of you talking about it and hit me up on it. So what they do is they write an intro to the subject type column, and then their editor poo-poos the rest of the articles because there's nothing left. Okay, you got your UFO article. Can you get back to real journalism now?
No follow-up. Mm-hmm.
No follow-up. And
I know.
And I'm tired of that. And
I know.
And the UFO public should be tired of that.
It's so frustrating. But I mean, let's be honest, right? If you go from an article like this to the point that we discuss on this show, it's going to take a while. Right?
True.
I mean, they got a lot of stuff to cover.
But you know what they could.
But what that means is there's a lot of content.
But what
they actually have stuff to write.
But what you should be doing and could be doing is say, okay, the public probably knows A, B, C, D already. Let's give them maybe a refresher on D, go to E, F, G, H. That's where we need to go. So in one way, I'm very happy that the article is out. Don't get me wrong. Any coverage is good coverage on the mainstream at this time. But what they are writing about, you might as well have picked up any article in the last 3-4 years. You're going to see the exact same story. I mean, this is getting much like UFO conferences. It's the exact same people at the.
It's all UFO 101.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let me ask you, Dave. Isn't it a common failure of a lot of magazines and newspapers and outlets so forth to always assume that their readership only knows what they've told them, and to always tell the story from the point of view of, well, we've never covered this, so therefore we have to go back to that place. Isn't that like a common practice?
Depends how many words they are getting. So, for instance, if I was writing that story. Okay, and I had Lesley Keene to interview about it, I wouldn't be talking about the New York Times. It's over. It's old. Okay, I wouldn't be talking about Tic Tac. I wouldn't be talking about Gimbal or Go Fast, or even you'd have to literally start from the DNI report a couple of months ago and roll from there. That's your starting point, right? The rest of it is just byline filler that the reporter is trying to do his job, and he's different name, same story, different outlet. That's exactly what it is. Let's move on a second here for topic number 2 of the night. All right.
So go ahead.
So this one comes from something that was overlooked in the UAPTF report.
Well, it's something that was mentioned that was kind of some people think it was intentionally played low to not draw attention to it. And what it is, it's a whole idea of signature management. And for those who aren't aware, well, first off, I want to give a nod to Bob who's the one that wrote this, and that's not his real name. That's a pseudonym because of what he does for a living and what he's done in the past. And but I'll provide a link to his article after this. But the thing is that signature management. So just real quick, explain what it is. So every plane, every vehicle emits a certain amount of signals. Some of them are intentional signals. Some of them are side effect signals. And another craft can just play ignorant to them, or they can actually slurp them in and then spin them around or modify them in ways or respond to them in ways that are defensive, even offensive, but usually defensive. And it's basically a signature management. And it really shows a tremendous amount of intelligence and a tremendous amount of capability in a vehicle that does this kind of management. And that is exactly what the Tic Tac was doing. It was doing complete signature management. And, and so this is in many ways the best actual sign we have of real intelligence within this device is that it was actively managing our signal emissions. And what I also find very funny about it is if you start thinking about the levels of this and then the levels of the complexity of this, the Tic Tac was completely visible, right? So for it to be managing its signal, it's not like it was managing its signal and then it was putting its hands over its eyes going, la, 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 you can't see me now, right? We could still see it, right? It's sitting right in front of you, right? So why are you managing your signal that carefully? Why are you managing all that traffic that carefully if you're not also obscuring your visibility with visible light? And so it was almost kind of funny in a way because there was kind of a lot of effort without a whole lot of payoff because, we could still identify it and still see it in other ways. Maybe we couldn't collect, ELINT type data from it. But, to me, it created kind of a funny scenario considering the fact that it was so visible and it wasn't hiding its presence. But once again, it shows tremendous intelligence and capability that these devices were actually doing this.
Well, that's really cool. That is very cool that they're starting to pick up some substance on what these craft are capable of doing. I think that's absolutely great. Now, how do they expand that? What are they going to try and do? Is that going to be to try and help maybe figure out radar signatures or something along those lines?
Well, unfortunately, I can pretty much guarantee you that there is a lot of work being done there, and it's work that we'll never hear about. Because essentially, ELINT, basically the slurping of electronic traffic and the processing of it is something that we've held very close to the chest for 50 years. Usually when planes fly along borders, what they're doing is they're intentionally flying close enough to wake up anti-missile systems so that those systems start sending out signals, and then they slurp them down and take them back, and we process them, and that's how we create better radar reflective, shielding, and how we learn to mask who we are and how we pretend to be other people, and it's a huge side of the military intelligence, and that's really where this falls, and so there are things we can do. Unfortunately, not all of them are friendly. So I don't really know if we really want to be, pushing that boundary too much. But unfortunately, I think it's pretty safe to say that as long as the military is doing it, we're probably not going to get a whole lot of feedback on it. But I guarantee you they're doing work.
Very true. And third and final topic for tonight, former fighter pilot Ryan Graves apparently gave just a fantastic presentation at AIAA. Tell us about it.
This is not for everybody, okay? But if you like to geek out on details, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of what Graves saw, this is the presentation for you. He goes into excruciating detail with slides on how many objects he saw, what their characteristics are. I mean, just in the very beginning of the presentation, you get confirmed that that yes, the planes were upgraded from this, I believe, the 73 code to the 79 code for the radar, and he confirms that it was only the planes that had that upgrade that saw the contact. Any planes left in the fleet that didn't have that upgrade didn't see it. So you get a lot of very interesting details, and Graves does just a magnificent job of presenting it in a very clean, very unbiased way. And it's only like 28 minutes, and it's now available. They've made it publicly available. You can find it on YouTube. I'll supply a link for it later tonight. And I just, like I said, it's not for everyone. It's pretty geeky, but if you like that stuff, boy, man, this is just it's Disneyland.
Yeah, thank you to Justin in our chat room for pointing out that it's on the SCU YouTube channel.
Yes.
So that is great. I mean, I love the fact that Graves is coming out, because the more fighter pilot voices we get, the better. And, the fact that he is showing, along with, and Dietrich and others, has really taken a lot of the pressure off of David Fravor right at the beginning.
Yes, yes. And the nice thing is that the whole reason why I heard about this presentation was because of the impact it made at this conference. I mean, it really like people were talking about it. Like this presentation really had a huge impact on everyone else. And so it means a lot of people were listening and a lot of people were hearing what he was saying.
What's probably, let's give it a little tease here since you've seen this. What's probably some of the most juiciest parts of that speech?
Boy, for me, it was specific hard facts like what I just said. Like to me, like the fact that there was a specific jump in radar code and equipment. That he goes into details about how long that upgrade takes. When they were trained on it versus when they started using it. And just specific details like what I said, like the fact that, if you had, 8 planes out and 7 of them had the upgrade to 79 code and one of them hadn't, that one plane did not see the contact.
It was blind.
And those just aren't details that you get. Or the fact that there were several stationary objects and there were several moving objects. And they actually used the fact that there were stationary objects to filter them out. So they knew which objects were which. And so there was multiple contexts. There was a lot going on, but it's the details. It's a whole devil in the details thing. There's a lot of good juicy data in there.
Now, John, we just got to hope that one day we get some actual radio contact going on rather than radar, because that would be completely a game changer. And John, we want to say thank you for coming on the Unbiased UFO Report, another great report by you. We really appreciate it. People can find the replay on our YouTube channel as well. So thank you, John. We'll talk to you in a couple of nights. And with that, let's get to the news.
Thank you, sir.
The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the confrontational. A Texas couple was enjoying the views of San Diego County while on vacation to celebrate their wedding anniversary. How nice. When suddenly their rental car was slammed from behind, not by another vehicle, but by a small airplane that was making an emergency landing. I think we broke the fall. The plane didn't hit concrete, it hit our car, Sarah Tribbett said. Shortly after noon, a single-engine Piper PA-32 aircraft landed on southbound Interstate 5 near Del Mar, shocking drivers as the plane clipped Tribbett's vehicle before coming to a rest on the freeway. We were just driving down the freeway, and all of a sudden, something hit us really hard, and the glass shattered everywhere, Tribbett recalled. We're both okay, but it definitely was an interesting experience. What began as a romantic getaway in the city, where Tribbett and her husband got married, turned into a story of a lifetime. Great memories. That's what it's all for, isn't it? All right, let's move on to another story here. In the pantheon of the armed services, the U.S. Space Force has always been a bit of an odd duckling. Its genesis during Donald Trump's administration was hardly auspicious. Much of its missions existed in future tense, and it might be taking a little time from the convention of referring itself to the Guardians to catch on. It's not clear when the branch will actually even deploy troops in orbit. Not anytime soon, though, and there's a widespread public perception that the Space Force has little mission beyond its defunct one as a Trump vanity project. Yeah. Apparently, Space Force Intelligence Officer Captain Pierre Jones said, I think it's important because we use satellite tech in everyday life. This is what they're going to be protecting now. It's not about aliens. It's about protecting satellites. So that little bolt that is broken off a satellite, or that little screw, yeah, they're going to be blowing them out of the sky. Just like that. Pew, 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 pew. Yeah, good job, Space Force. Good job. Moving on. When residents of an affluent estate community in Alberta started hearing noise from a nearby power plant, they didn't expect their complaints of sleepless nights would lead to months-long investigation that would find a Bitcoin mining operation that had set up shop without approval. Now, Link Global, the company behind the site, is being ordered by the province's Utility Commission to shut down 2 plants until it can prove it's allowed to operate. A move, the company said, will cost jobs and cause the oil and gas infrastructure in which it operates to sit dormant. Yes, Jeff this is a good Ukrainian name. Kokaipich. Yeah, I think I got that right. No, Kokaipchik. There we go. Kokaipchik first started hearing the noise last fall. He's president of the Greystone Manor Community Association. Oh, he's an MCA kind of guy. And a small neighborhood located in Sturgeon County, about 10 kilometers northwest of Edmonton. It differs every time the wind changes direction. It's like a wave, but it's 10 times louder and 100 times more annoying. It's most likely sounding like a plane engine warming up on the tarmac. Such a racket, my family couldn't sleep. Sure they couldn't. Anyways, they're in trouble with the province, and that's all that matters. Let's get to the thought of the day. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Let's get to it. What is your thoughts on regressing ET contactees and abductees for information about their experiences? And I would be down. Eric, only Casey would. John, if done by a qualified and experienced hypnotherapist, maybe. Selena, as long as it wouldn't harm the contactee or abductee, I'd be all right with it. Vincent, a person needs to be prepared. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's awfully hard to get it back in. Angela, it's fine as long as the experiencer carefully documents the before and after info separately. Ron, slippery slope. Does it need to come to surface to be resolved? Yes. Chris, it's too suggestive, and if utilized by someone with less and honorable intentions, it can be real harmful. And that is your thought of the day today. Thank you for everybody participating. Thank you to John Hudson for the unbiased UFO report, Captain Shirky Poo for the wonderful news, and of course Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, our guest tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.